And today we're exploring a theme that touches every part of our lives: choice.
Today, we'll be asking, how can we tell if we're acting from our essence or from our wounds?
When I'm choosing from a wound, sometimes I just feel like I'm nervous, or there's a sense of urgency, or it feels really edgy. There's a tightness. Sometimes I just really feel like it's cloudy.
Where's your next choice coming from? Is it coming from the fear or is it coming from alignment? And if it is coming from the fear based, what is a little shift, even if it's a small shift, little small action that you could take just to then return to alignment and return to your essence? Welcome back to the Healing You Method podcast. I'm Gail Donohue, joined by my dear friend and co-host, Gloria Lybecker.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to be with you again. And today we're exploring a theme that touches every part of our lives: choice.
Yes, because the energy behind our choices matters. Today we'll be asking, how can we tell if we're acting from our essence or from our wounds? And what does an intuitive yes or no actually feel like in the body? And, so we really want to look at how do we source our decisions from alignment and not by fear.
Mhm.
So let's begin with this question. Am I choosing from my essence or from my wounds?
Mm.
Essence choices arise from love, from presence, from clarity. And wound-driven choices, they come from scarcity, old conditioning, and fear.
Yeah, for me, I definitely can feel the difference. When I'm choosing from a wound, sometimes I just feel like I'm nervous, or there's a sense of urgency, or it feels really edgy. There's a tightness. Sometimes I just really feel like it's cloudy and so kind of confusing. Or a really good one I do is I will really get into comparing myself and finding myself lacking for sure. And when I'm able to notice that and I can shift back my focus to my heart and what I love, when I'm choosing from essence, my shoulders drop, my breath deepens, there's a sense of openness, really touching into that divine essence.
Mm. Oh, I noticed the same, totally similar things. That comparison one, it's a big one that comes up quickly for me,
Yeah.
and it's a big clue um, that I'm not in my essence with making choices or even my thinking, which
Mm,
then, of course, won't lead to the best choices. Wound-driven choices feel like pushing or hustling. And essence choices feel really steady and clear.
mm,
Like the decision is already aligned with who I am. I mean, I have an example of even just I could take yesterday when I was definitely pushing myself. I was just
mm,
exhausted, but I was just pushing myself. And I was just stuck in that pattern of pushing and not really being present with what I was doing. I really just needed to slow down and of just taken a bit of a rest. Even if it had been 5 minutes, it would
mm,
have helped. And I could have got aligned with myself and with my essence and decided what I wanted to do going forward instead of staying in this overwhelmed, foggy, and but not generating anything like it was just a blob kind of a feeling.
Yeah.
I could have stepped out of that and been much more present with myself and
Mm.
aligned. So I would just like to invite our listeners, if you think of a recent decision, or if you haven't had a decision to make, even just recently, something that you were doing, was it sourced from your essence or was it from an old wound?
Mm.
And maybe you can tell by hearing what Gloria and I have shared, but maybe you haven't. So, Gloria, do you have some suggestions of how we can discern our
Well,
essence?
yeah, one way to discern alignment is by really paying attention to your body's wisdom. I know for many of us, we're not encouraged to listen to our body. I mean, listen to your body. What do you mean by that? Well, developing a language for the body, what are the somatics? What do you notice where in your body you're feeling sensations? And even developing a language for sensations is so helpful. And then noticing where you feel the sensations and then noticing what feelings you have in there because it starts somatically in the body. The body, um, it maps out all of your environment before your mind actually catches up. So if you can notice the sensations first, that's a way that you can begin to shift your focus to really what you're paying attention to.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. And sometimes with people that I'm working with, I'll share a story of um, when you have you ever been sort of had a moment of being all of a sudden suddenly afraid while watching a movie, perhaps? Or maybe you've been walking somewhere and you just have a sort of a spidey kind of sense that someone might be behind you and maybe just a little bit too close. Well, if that's happened to you, have you ever noticed like a bit of goosebumps rising on your neck? And I know that I have. And that is a perfect demonstration how your body is speaking before your mind is catching up. Your mind is not telling your body to do this. Your body is already moving and making changes to look after you. So as you were describing so beautifully, Gloria, an intuitive yes for me also feels like expansion. um, there's an opening in the chest and a, a, a way that it feels easy and more like a flow. There's sort of a moving energy. There's not a constraint or tension. And that's where the no often feels like. It feels like contraction and tension, more of a heaviness, like really slugging through something or a
Mm.
pulling back. The yes feels more like a gentle warmth throughout the body for me.
Hmm. Yeah. I know one thing that I find really fascinating is the more that I'm paying attention to what my body is having when my body's communicating with me, many times what I'm noticing is my body is actually telling me a story that maybe it's not true. So I do want to pay attention to that. Um, and for me, it's because of past traumas that I've had. And so my body's been conditioned to sense that there's going to be danger somewhere when there's not. And so when I really pay attention to my body and I can bring presence to my body, if there is a danger there, then I can take action. And if there's not, then I can bring compassion to myself and I can choose to move through it. So I know sometimes when I get that no, that contraction, it's an alert that there's something in my environment that my body is paying attention to. So when I can bring presence to it, I can attend to it. And that honors it because it's
Mm,
taking the time to bring compassion to the body. It's not judgment,
yeah.
but it's creating more awareness in the moment. Because when we can have those contractions happen, it could be the ever-present past showing up. And when that happens, I want to be able to welcome it so I can have a new experience and then my heart can open back up, like what you were saying. And that's been so empowering to take that time, to take that moment to pause and really honor the body's experience so you can have a new experience.
Yes, yes. And that reminds me of a story of one of my clients that I worked with that it does take time to learn this and learn the discernment. This particular client got to the point where they just had their body had a somatic no, took a while and they were able to recognize it. And it was about seeing some family members. And they just didn't have the words or the explanation about it, but they just knew they didn't want to do it. It just didn't feel safe. And they honored that. They had some boundaries around it. It hasn't been that they've totally not spoken to them, but in terms of spending time, because they would have to share living accommodation, they knew they did not want to go there. And
Mm.
then with listening to the body, without figuring it out, but just really honoring that somatic yes, it has now opened up a huge window of seeing what had been happening in their lives and is getting much more clarity around boundaries and connecting with their body. It's just a whole new door has opened up with looking at empowered choices instead of choices that were just running from fear and
Oh,
were hidden.
yeah. So I love that expansion that's happening and that new doorway that's opened.
Yeah.
So for our listeners here, I want to actually invite you to bring to mind a very simple choice. Maybe it's whether you're going to have tea or water, or maybe you're going to go for a walk or get some rest. And just take a moment to notice how your body feels as you imagine your options. And what do the sensations signal? Is it a yes? Or notice, is it a no? Just simply notice that. Practicing with small choices, it builds trust between your essence and your body. So then when the bigger decisions do arise, your body's language, you get to know yourself so much better.
Yeah. So much better. And when you get to know yourself so much better, then you can step into more of your own essence and step into sovereignty, which means
Mhm.
that you're owning every moment and that every moment holds choice. Even when we can't control circumstances that are happening outside of us, and we can't control them at all with what's happening in our environment, in our society, we can choose to be in alignment with our sovereignty and our own essence.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean that you're going to make perfect decisions all the time. It does mean that it's a practice. It's a practice. So I know for myself, just, waking in the morning and having that connection with self, with source, and with my sovereignty, just waking up and choosing that focus. It makes such a difference. And then I go through the day and I fall into my patterns and I notice I'm in my pattern. When I notice I'm in my pattern, then I can shift my focus. It's a choice. And it requires our will to make these choices. When we invoke our will, we can practice moving our focus back to where we would really like it to be. I
Mm.
know, I mean, even doing that with the horses, this has been a practice for me from the time I was young of really being present with the horses. Because if I go into my patterns with the horses, it becomes very evident because they reflect it back to me. And really coming back, I remember you used the example of the hair coming up on the back of your neck. One time I was working with one of my horses, Shadow, and I was working with him in the round pen, and then all of a sudden I just felt it. I felt the hair on my whole body just go up, and he reflected that back because his whole energy came up and he got very enlivened. And I'm like, holy cow, what's going on here? So I dropped back into my breath and I started breathing deep into my belly, and I could see him begin. So the co-regulation then starts to come up. So that companionship, that really where you place your attention, your energy is going to follow. But to have that accompaniment with it, boy, I'll never forget that experience. Choosing presence is really powerful.
Yes, yes, and the more that we are connected with ourselves, it starts to. I found that the Claire, it starts to show up where the pattern and the old story, might be taking you in the way you don't want to go.
Yeah.
Um, you're just when you were speaking, you were reminding me of like just the other day. There was a few things that I wanted to get done, and when I got up and I was in the middle of my morning routine, and I thought, oh, well, maybe I'll just start doing them right now. And all of a sudden I went, no, no, Gail. You have this morning routine so that you can come back to you can align with honoring yourself and connecting with your essence, slowing down and doing that, taking
Mm.
care of yourself first before you get into getting busy with the to-do list, because that's been my big pattern. And it really felt good actually when I made that decision, but I did it just so much more consciously.
Oh,
And it really felt like, what a healthy and expansiveness sense came to for me in making the choice to align for me at that time. So
mm.
uh with that, I would just invite the listeners, once again, you can pause right now and take a breath and invite practicing to think about, where's your next choice coming from? Is it coming from the fear or is it coming from alignment? And if it is coming from the fear based, what is a little shift, even if it's a little small action that you could take just to then return to alignment and return to your essence?
Yeah. So today we've been exploring the energy of choice, essence versus wounds, and how to sense an intuitive yes or no, and how sovereignty, it truly does, it's alive in every moment.
And our invitation to you is to begin noticing this week. Where are your choices coming from? Fear or essence? Practice listening for your embodied yes and no, and honor even the smallest actions that flow from alignment.
Yeah. Well, I've got an example. I have a choice that I'm making this week. And it's really, I noticed that I had this pattern running, but I didn't really notice it. I mean, it was there, but I was not paying attention to it. And so that pattern was when I joined a new platform to be of service with my work, that I would make posts on there. Well, I've gotten on there a few times and looked around and started looking at everyone else's things that they're doing. So I started comparing, and I wasn't really noticing what I was creating for myself. But my gut would clench and I would just not follow through. When I recognized this yesterday, I decided to take the reins and come back to my essence. And so I did. I did my practice. I used my circles and I made a choice, a decision where I was going to focus my attention and I could see what my next obvious action step was to take. And so I did it. And so I've now posted on the platform and I've got an event that's coming up and I followed through. And now today is another day. So today I can make a post there because it's a new platform. And like I got scared. I thought, oh, nobody's going to want to hear me. It's like, well, it's not true. You're doing this because you love it and you want it to be a blessing, to be of service. And so then that gives me, I don't know, kind of a giggle with myself. And I can just take my own hand and I can take the next step. And there's a relaxation that comes in when I do
Hmm. Oh, what a wonderful story,
that.
Gloria. And it really illustrates and leads so well into our next episode of the podcast, which is about layers of consciousness. And
Hmm.
who's driving the creation bus?
I like that. I got a whole busload of myself. Yeah, so we're going to explore the self-conscious, the subconscious, the unconscious, and the superconscious mind, and what role each one plays in how we create our lives, and how trauma imprints really shape those subconscious belief systems. And we'll give you a practice for tuning in into your superconscious for next step clarity.
So until next time, may your choices be rooted in essence, guided by intuition, and aligned with love.
And may each yes and no you honor bring you deeper into sovereignty.